Please like our videos, share them with your friends, and lastly, subscribe to our channel. Ken's journey began with the tragic loss of his father, Sergeant Michael Wasley, a member of the Gold Team of the U.S. Army Parachute Team. In 1973, Sergeant Wasley, along with fellow Gold Team members, lost his life in a devastating plane crash while serving his country. This moment forever changed Ken's family and instilled in him a lifelong commitment to honoring the fallen and supporting their families. Reflecting on his own childhood, Ken shares, "As a child, we didn't have the kind of support to help us through the loss of a parent. Back then, we just didn't know what resources or understanding could make a difference. Growing up without that support shaped me in ways I couldn't fully understand until much later. I made a commitment to ensure that no child experiencing a similar loss would feel the way I did, isolated and unsupported. Knowing what I went through, I see the profound impact this kind of help could have made in my life, and I'm dedicated to providing that for children in need today." Ken Wasley is a visionary nonprofit executive, keynote speaker, and strategic marketing leader with a deep-rooted passion for honoring the legacies of our nation's fallen heroes. He is the founder of Children of Fallen Heroes. Through Children of Fallen Heroes, Ken hopes to turn pain into purpose, creating a lasting legacy of care and empowerment for the next generation. In his own words, he states, "In my life's journey, I've faced heartache, loss, and countless challenges. It's those very experiences that have shaped my path and led me to a purpose I'm deeply passionate about." In a heartfelt gesture, he generously donated 82.5 acres in Moore County, North Carolina, near Fort Bragg and Pinehurst land to the Children of Fallen Heroes. The establishment of the Retreat and Education Center is an opportunity to turn a negative into a positive for the community. We are pleased to have him speak with us on Silencio Coffee's podcast, Coffee Talk. This is Mike from Silencio Coffee, Coffee Talk, and I've got my friend here and my partner, Big Fred. Fred, how are you, man?
I'm good, Mike. How you been?
Yeah, he's got a pulse, and I've got one too, and we've got a really cool guest here, Ken Wasley. So Ken is the founder of Children of Fallen Heroes. He's got an incredible story. We're going to get into the meat and potatoes of that. We're going to get into the heart of that. I found it to be a very powerful story, very compelling, just by looking at the video. And you'll see that video in the intro, but we're going to get into a lot of questions about just his journey. You know, when you look at that, you think to yourself, there is some painful truth there, and there's a crisis of confidence for a lot of young boys that don't have fathers. And what was his journey? How did he turn a tragedy into something wonderful that is so moving, that helps children? It's really amazing, and you can see it in the video with all that they've done. And so we'll get into some questions here, and man, this is going to be cool. Ken, how are you, man?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me on here, Mike, and thanks, Big Fred, for having us. Been a good
Yes,
day.
sir.
Cool.
Hey, I just want to open up and wish you a happy 10th anniversary for Children of Fallen Heroes. And I know we're going to kind of get into that, but happy anniversary. That's a big milestone, 10 years.
It really is. Thank you, Fred. That really that means a lot. That touched the heart. You know, it's been a long journey, but it's things are really coming to fruition.
Yeah, you guys are doing some really cool stuff, which we're going to get into. Mike, I didn't mean to step on you there, so I'm going to let you continue.
Well, Fred, we can go either way, but I'll just ask my first question. You know, I saw that video, and you could still have parents alive, and it's moving. You obviously lost your father, and we had 16 people pass away, but they're doing something amazing, something incredible. They're not putting on a show, but they're training to be the best at what they do, and what they put down, with their actions, we are benefiting from today. I mean, these air shows and the parachuting, all that is incredible. I mean, these guys were mavericks of that time. Incredible. How do you even articulate that? But for me, when I see that, and I see this video about you losing your father, and that's the thing I said today, is that boys are facing a crisis of confidence today. We already know that, and they have fathers who are weak fathers. But clearly your father was an inspiration to you and even to me. When I look at that video, I'm like, this is one incredible guy. Clearly you loved him. How old were you? And take us through what happened and how you're feeling when you got the news. I mean, I know I'm going straight into it right now,
No,
but let's get into that, man.
yeah, it's okay. It's a part of life.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that we are guaranteed in life is, death and taxes, as they always say. It was unfortunate the way that it happened, but I was a young boy, close to about 4, going on 5. We were living in the trailers over in Fayetteville, and he came into my bedroom that morning and stood me up at the bed and says, "Hey, I'm going on TDY. And you have to be the man of the house. You have to take care of your mother and your sister." And then he kissed me on the forehead, and I watched him go out the door. He kissed my mom and my sister, and he left. But we ended up hearing the news by Walter Cronkite. He actually broke the news. That's how we found out. Nobody knocked on our door. That's how we found out the news. We saw the tragedy. My mom was very upset, but of course, being at my age, I didn't kind of understand what was kind of going on. You know what I mean? The guys came the next day, and I remember the car coming up, and I just remember wanting to protect my mom. That was the big thing. But that note that he told me to be the man of the house and to take care of my mother and sister is something that has just stuck with me my entire life. And it's kind of a heavy burden. And I wouldn't want to wish that upon any child. I don't think that any father would say that with an intent that would be such a heavy burden to carry on in life, but it is something that I hope we will discuss later, with future war fighters and our guys out there about the relationships with their children and stuff, of the final messages and the messages that they send when going out. So, but yeah, that happened in 1973.
And I'm being rude because for those who are listening on the podcast and not actually watching the videos, I apologize. For those who are not on YouTube, Ken, could you talk to us about what happened on that fateful night with Walter Cronkite, the news? How many people, where were they going, etc.
Yeah, so my dad was a member of the U.S. Army Golden Knights parachute team, and it was a C-47. It was a early morning. They had loaded up the plane, and they were trying to get above the clouds, and they had a failure, and ended up having a tragic plane crash in Silcope, North Carolina, which is, only about maybe 30 minutes from here where I'm at in Pinehurst right now, right outside of Fort Bragg. And that took the life of my father and 13 other Gold Team members. It was it's still is the biggest catastrophe that the Golden Knights have ever had, but what I will say is that they were just an awesome family that supported us, and took care of our own. It's a very, very special group of individuals, jumpers, team leaders, and wives.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about some of the programs that you guys do. We'll get into the heart of that and discuss how we can, sponsor what you've done. But of course, the group that Ken created, this Children of Fallen Heroes, I mean, they do so much. They've helped thousands. I mean, literally, I think maybe 15,000 kids and families. So incredible there. And we'll get to talk about that. So how did that event really help you with your decision-making process? Some people wallow in kind of victimhood. And of course, when you have a moment like that, of course, it's painful, but you have to get out of that. And some adults can't. But as a 4-year-old boy, man, that's crazy. I've got a grandson who's 6, love of my life. How did you take that event and let it guide your decision-making process to what you are today, who you are today, how you see yourself and how you see the world?
That's a great question. I give a lot of it to my mother.
Okay.
Incredible strength that she had. We have to also look at the timeline of when this accident kind of happened to kind of bring things into perspective of how things came about. Um, my mom was Japanese,
Hmm.
so we also have to remember that coming to Fort Bragg, it had only been 30 years since they had bombed Pearl Harbor. So the prejudice and the things that were going on back then were massive. It was still like it was stuck in time. I'd be invited to churches and told not to come back. I'd be invited to Boy Scouts and told not to come back. Um, some bad things happened as a child to me. But the one thing that my mother had always instilled in me, I was always like, why are these people so mean? And she would always tell me, was it because they don't know? So she never went around with bitterness or anything like that. So growing up here, my mom ended up remarrying to another gentleman that had a long career. Well, we can get into that a little bit later. Um, but we transitioned over to Colorado Springs in Colorado, and that's where I had met a group of Jag Ensembles. It was a choir group, and it was an early morning group. And that group was what the turning point was for me.
Hmm.
And that's where I learned team, being in harmony, those type of things. And they're still all great friends to this day. We still all, when we get together, it's like we never left. But that is really the kind of the foundation of how I came about Children of Fallen Heroes. And that is that I didn't want any child to ever have to endure what I endured, and I'm not blaming society back then either, because what happened back then is we just didn't have the knowledge.
Hmm.
We have the knowledge now. So, and I think it's important that we take that knowledge and we help guide our younger generation, the next generation is my hopes and what we're doing here at Children of Fallen Heroes.
I think it is very powerful what you're talking about. I experienced myself as a Vietnamese American coming here. We saw it breaking windows, slashing tires, not liking us, but we were never victims. My mom never let us believe that for a moment that, we're going to take anyone's nonsense. But for you, um, are you a person of some kind of faith? And I mean, you were going to churches, but is that something that you are, a person of faith? And if so, did that guide you in some way?
Um, Yeah, I think I later on got into faith.
Hmm.
As a child, like I said, you were deterred away from churches, so I have, had a reluctancy to that of acceptance. But I was in Fairfax, Virginia when I gotten saved over there,
Hmm.
and of course, I've had my trials and tribulations with
Yeah.
God, like I
Yeah.
like to explain, and that's something we can kind of go into a little later too, just as well. The battles with that. I'll just go into it now.
Yeah.
Actually, in 20, I'd helped raise my sister's son, and my sister, um, an amazing mother, a horse trainer, and so forth. But Dylan went on to struggle in life, and then he worked his way up to becoming a 5-star chef. And then 2 weeks later in 2020, I lost him to a drunk driver. So my faith had become almost non-existent at that point in time. I was really kind of angry with God. And
Yeah.
it was kind of my conversations like, this is BS. I don't understand this. I don't get it. And so I felt that I was comfortable enough to be able to have those conversations, and that's kind of bringing me back. And now I'm kind of seeing the light of where things are kind of going, and this purpose living journey that we're on with Children of Fallen Heroes.
Well, it is fascinating to me because you had not one but two tragedies, and rather than wallowing, you have done something with that, and you had some kind of mentorship, something. So I don't know where you got that from, perhaps from your stepfather, if you want to talk about that. But I think there's a hero's journey here, which is it doesn't even have to be military, but it's a man who exists and lives in this world, and you've had two very strong tragedies. It wasn't just like a cousin who was in a car accident that you really didn't talk to or know. These are people that you knew, that meant something to you. So how did you decide to honor people? What was that journey? Was it your stepfather to help you preserve your father's legacy, and for your stepson's your nephew's legacy? I mean, how did that work out?
Well, actually, how it worked out is that I used to go to Intrepid in San Antonio.
Hmm.
And if people aren't familiar with Intrepid, Intrepid was where a lot of our amputees and so forth would go for therapy. And part of their journey was before they were allowed to go home is that they had to choose some recreational type of activities. And one of the ones that they chose was surfing.
Hmm.
So we were doing the surfing program, and it was through another nonprofit, Operation Surf. It was the name of the group. Um, we would teach these guys double amputees, quad amputees that we were teaching surfing and so forth. What I found is that we had a group of us that we went back to the hotel that night after we spent a week together, and we had a conversation, and we were talking about technology and how things were going to change and they were going to become better and they would become healed. But the conversation came about, and it was, who's going to take care of my wife and children? That's what they really cared about. And I remember walking down the beach after meeting a guy named Eric Lund, who was a double arm amputee of us up to his shoulders. And you would have to feed him and everything. And he was such a gentleman. And he was he was one of the best surfers too, on top of that. But I remember walking around that beach that day, and I sat there and I go, man, if there is a God out there, if anybody believes, this is a guy, that deserves a chance, And later on, he is the second recipient of a double arm transplant. He's actually picking up stuff with his hands now, which is pretty amazing. So I've had those type of mentors.
Hmm.
Terry Jung, who used to be the executive director for Lone Survivor. What a great guy. That guy took me under his wing, helped guide me making decisions as far as Children of Fallen Heroes goes. My stepfather, of course, he was a sergeant major. He was a LERP in Vietnam. He's a world historian, but his steadfast of being honorable, being honest, and living a life with integrity has been just hammered into my brain and into what I've become is because of that man. Another man to take another man's seed and to raise their children as their own is unbelievable. He's been with my mom for almost 50 years,
Hmm.
So what can you say other than I'm just absolutely grateful for him?
Yeah, I mean, I want to really illuminate your journey and some of the tips, some of the notes, some of the things that you've done that can perhaps help others listening to this podcast. Did you ever keep a journal at all? Do you believe in journaling? Or
I
did you ever keep notes for yourself? Just reminders, rituals that you do, celebration of your dad's death and birthday. So, what do you do? Are there things that you do to keep that fire alive?
Yeah, I just like you said, the videos and doing those type of things is my way of therapy.
Hmm.
It's how I share the stories. So being able to do the websites and social media and add those elements is definitely part of my healing journey, as well as it's my gift to the others to share. One of the things at the beginning you saw a yellow flag coming in with the
Yeah.
Golden Knights jumping into that field, into that open field landing with that blue parachute. That was a big one. That was the 50th anniversary of my dad's plane crash. And that was actually the site of the plane crash. We actually went there, and Silk Hope Fire Department went in there and cut it like Field of Dreams. The Golden Knights came with us. Uh, PK, Paraclete, they helped out with the planes, and we
Yeah.
actually tandem skydived in, my sister and some surviving family members. But we did not make that public. That was something that we did with just the groups that was from the 70s, some earlier, through maybe the early 80s, and that was it. But it was a very private, one day full event. And
Yeah.
that is something that we'll continue to kind of cherish.
It's wonderful, man. Well, I'm going to kick it over to Fred now, but thank you for your answers.
All right. So, Ken, how we've been friends for, I don't know, what, 5, 6 years? I don't even know what it's been now. We met through a mutual friend, right? Rick, who's been on the podcast before. Rick Herrera. I think that's how we met, right? Through Rick.
Yeah, we met through Pretty Ricky. Yeah, absolutely. We love
You
Rick.
said it.
You
I
know, and
didn't. I've been holding it in, but
yeah, Rick is,
all right.
look, we love Rick, and and I'm glad that I met Fred through Rick, because we have a good time. But he's a combat controller. He's everywhere, but I love the guy.
Yeah, Air Force guy, crazy Air Force guy. So, I kind of want to dive into the Children of Fallen Heroes, which is a 501c3. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So your nonprofit, I know you started it. I kind of got the impression that you started because the resources that weren't available at the time for you. So you assist like Gold Star children and spouses, family members, and you help them find resources to help them through their problems that come up when they lose a family member. Like, and it's not just veterans, military, it's also first responders. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So we've
Okay.
expanded. When I originally did this, we started out with
Mhm.
the children of fallen military and first responders. We felt that was the route that we were going. But right before Dylan had passed, we had been communicating. He had always had a love for foster kids and those in need in community. So we actually extended our services now. And so we not only do military first responders, we do foster kids. We also do caregivers. And this is a big one because some of us are taking care of World War II and Vietnam veterans. Like who's assisting them? Who's helping them? Who's giving them a reprieve?
Yep.
And the other one is Title I schools. They're our next generation, and they don't have the supplies and stuff like that. And that's where we're coming in. And we are really focused on the next generation by using education as a platform.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I know that, I've gotten some fallen mates of mine, comrades, and we'd have to kind of pull together, right? The community pulls together and takes donations or helps out the best way they can. They prepare food, they work rotations to where they need help with yard work and stuff like that. So like I kind of understand that, and I know how difficult it is, especially when there's sisters, wives, whatever, don't know all the answers and need help finding them. So
yeah,
can you talk a little bit about not a little? Oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. There's a delay. I think my Wi-Fi is acting kooky again.
I think the biggest thing is like I said, being able to help guide them through that process. As you know, grief is it's like Alzheimer's. You are gobsmacked. You don't know what is going on in your life. It is a complete tornado. And so to be able to come in and help guide them and be like, I've been in your shoes. Look, we're going to take some things off your plate. We'll get the kids to school or whatever that we need to do to help with those, getting them information on how to file the proper documentations and how to file. This is something that's not taught. It's something either somebody left behind a really well planned thing, but I can tell you this, 90% of them don't. So it ends up being a mess. So you're helping guide them through, and making sure that they don't get taken advantage of, because man, there's some evilness out in the world when it comes to people when they're dealing with grief. I've had it personally happen to me, so I know what it's like. So you have to be prepared, and that's what we want to do. Give them the tools.
Yeah, there's definitely some evil people out there. There's so many scams out there now on the internet. It's unbelievable. You hear about people getting scammed every day. Um, so, okay, good. Man, this delay is not helping me out. I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay.
Let's kind of break the timeline down for your, and I don't know, do you call the new facility, is that the STEM center? Is that what is that the title?
Yeah. So I went through after losing Dylan. I had sold my place at Holden, and then I found 82 acres over there off of Morrison Bridge Road, which is off the back gate of Fort Bragg, and only
Yep.
about 15 minutes away from Pinehurst. The 82 acres will be the Children of Fallen Heroes Retreat and STEM and Arts Center, and it's massive. Fred's been out there. Uh, we're putting in a sportsplex, agricultural. We cut in a runway. We have a dog park area that for training centers, and then we're also putting in a wind tunnel. So
Wow.
that's one of the big things. And we also have equine, and then we have trails that are just cut everywhere through there. So all the trails for the turkeys, just not for Fred.
That's funny.
I was going to chime in. Lots of wild trails with so-called wild turkey. I'm just kidding. I have them on trail camera. I know they're out there. They know when I'm around. They hide.
Yeah, they always come around to me. It's it's so funny. I'll send Fred.
Yeah, I totally lost.
Like, you won't believe it. A turkey just flew over the top of me. So good times.
Yeah, just to give our listeners a little background on this inside joke. So when Ken bought this property, this 82 acres out in Vass, North Carolina, it was totally wooded and untouched, virgin territory. It's beautiful. There's all kinds of wildlife. There's deer. I've seen river otters. I've seen wild turkey. I've seen bobcats. You name it, it's out there if it exists in this area. And I started hunting it like 2 years ago. The only thing not out there is wild pigs, which we don't really have a lot of those in Moore County, but it's pretty amazing. Like every time we walk it, we see something really cool out there. And I've got trail camera footage for days of different wildlife, but they don't like to show themselves for some reason when I'm out there with a firearm waiting to shoot them. But it's a beautiful property, and I can't wait to see it when it's all said and done. But you kind of you jumped ahead a little me, and I think it's because of this delay. But I was gonna break the timeline into pre-STEM, STEM and Art Center, and then post once you do your grand opening. I just wanted you to talk a little bit about, and people can go to your website and read about it, about the events and some of the local stuff you do, because I know I've been a witness to some pretty cool stuff, i.e. the Southern Pines Veterans Day Parade, where you guys parachute team jump in and land on the X right there in front of the theater. You do a lot of air shows, and can you talk a little bit about some of the stuff you guys are doing, especially the skydiving? I know a lot of our listeners are really into that stuff.
Yeah, we're really blessed. We have some of our skydiving team is actually part of our story. It is how we share our story, and it is the foundation of our story. So the parachute team is expanded. When we first did one of the demos, of course, it was over at the Southern Pines Veterans Day Parade with Rick Herrera and Susan Herrera, their group, the Sandhill Vet Festival, that puts on an incredible parade. We were able to jump in there, and one of the cool stories about that is on the team there was a lady named Cheryl Stearns, and Cheryl Stearns was the first female on the U.S. Army Golden Knights parachute team. She was also the first one to jump in the flag at the Statue of Liberty. And so to have her, that's had over she's over 22,000 jumps or something like that now. She's in the Hall of Fame, International Hall of Fame, and Aviation Hall of Fame. So we had her jump in, Greg Windmiller, Chuck, and Matt that jumped into that event. That was such a momentous thing for us. That went on to open up other shows. We started doing Festival d'Avion, over at Moore County Airport, where we bring in ospreys, Chinooks. We have cars, we have kids zones, food trucks. And then we turned that more or less into trunk or treat now, which has been a really fun thing. The team has gone on to travel around and do other air shows. We've been able to do shows with the Blue Angels. And that was a very, very special moment for me. But the proudest moment that I could say about our parachute team is that we have what's called the International Council of Air Shows. They govern the entire world with air shows. And Trent and I were at the ICAST in 2023, and I was actually going to get up to go to the bathroom. I'm like, hey, they're doing a meeting. It's a big dinner, a luncheon thing that was out there. And I was like, I got to go to the bathroom. And I turn around, I look up, and I'm like, hey, there's our video, And next thing you know, we got voted the International Council of Air Shows Platinum Pinnacle Performer of the Year for 2023. That is by far the largest milestone that we've ever done with our parachute team. And we have members now that are on Team Red Bull, Momentum, Ascend, Paraclete. We got the top skydivers in the world. And now we are expanding our shows, which we'll talk about that too, just as well. But this team is very, very special. We're known for jumping in 3,500 to 5,000 square foot U.S. banner flags. And what we do is we do what's called the honor jump. And we'll call around the area to find out the gold stars, the first responders, and we invite them all out. And then are on the DZ, and we jump in honor of their loved ones. And it's just a very, very moving, very powerful. And what a better way to honor, What better way? I can't think of a better way.
Yeah, definitely. That's so cool, man. Very cool indeed. So in addition to the skydiving and all the cool stuff, the air shows, and I know you're doing stuff with drones now. I'll get into that here momentarily. You're also involved in a program for the kids for STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and robotics. I know you guys are entering robotics competitions and things like that. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I STEM is definitely so huge a part of this: the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. You're hearing the term now being called STEAM instead of STEM, but we have called it STEM plus arts because people recognize that right away.
Right.
What I find is that let's make education fun again. Make it engaging. And that's something that we have built a formula on that everybody enjoys at all ages, because even the parents come in and do that. So one of the partnerships that we have is like Swift Robotics. This robotics team is absolutely incredible. Young kids from 4 all the way up. They have won multiple awards, the North Carolina Inspire Awards. They've also been to Worlds at Houston. What is it? 5 out of the last 7 years. It could be more now. They are just doing incredibly well. So we're going to be bringing them on board to provide the robotics classes. But we have many different ones. Even indoor skydiving, we do a lot of that. We do the iFlies and Paraclete, where we turn it into an educational program.
Yeah, don't you work with a youth indoor skydiving team?
Yeah, so glad you mentioned that. So Emma and Gabriel is our next gen dynamics. They represent Children of Fallen Heroes. And last year we actually won, and mind you, these are 12 and 14 years old. We won nationals,
right?
And then we got invited to Worlds. And just last week, they got the silver in Worlds. And that is a heck of an accomplishment. Like, that is massive,
Yeah.
And so Boris, a good friend of mine, he owns ISG wind tunnels in Europe. He built all the ones over there. To have him there with Tunnel Talk and Robert Titello and them was just absolutely amazing. They did an outstanding job, but I couldn't be more proud of those two. Those two just make my heart glow. I love those two so much.
Very cool. Part of the this STEAM, we'll call it. I'll call it for that from now on because that's probably easier to remember. But it's it's a mouthful, so we'll just call it STEAM.
Yep.
I know you kind of you and I have had offline conversations about some of the stuff you want to incorporate in. I think one of them is survival training, right? So survival training, you're going to do some other outdoorsman type activities at your center also, right?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, we got this guy, Big Fred. Hopefully, going to come out and do some of our survival classes with Silencio. What's so cool about this? I've watched Fred on how he is interacted with his son and so forth. And listen, classy guy. You've done a great job raising your son, and so to be able to see that and to be able to be a mentor. Is something that we want to do. There are so many kids out there that need it. There's even some adults, even some veterans that are in transition that can become a part of this to help us with this program, because they're always trying to help them survive, give them the tools necessary in life and teach them that these like little survival skills are applications to life. So I think that that's something that I'm really, really looking forward to. Some of the outdoor stuff that we'll be doing this year, we'll also be doing drones out there. We'll be doing horseback riding out there. We're going to be doing some camping. I'd like to do some culinary stuff, even with over the fire, like let's mix it up. Let's try some different stuff, and make it engaging, Yeah.
Culinary arts is definitely part of the arts. That was my profession prior to the Army. Ice sculptures and food presentation and different garnishing and stuff like that. That stuff's a lot of fun. You find kids that are into that, let me know, man. I haven't done that stuff in years, but it's a lot of fun. As like just jumping on that survival real quick, as well, we'll get them trained up and they'll be able to operate in the woods on their own, minus hunting turkey.
Yeah, we could do that. Maybe some airsoft, we could get them in camo. So, Mike, are you an outdoorsman too, just as well, or
not as much? I'm a city boy.
You're a city boy?
I'm a city boy, but yeah, I get there out as much as I can, whether it's in the woods, in the ocean. I love to swim in the ocean. I love to do a lot of hiking. My wife and I hike probably every weekend to a new park. Yeah, I love it. I love it a lot, man. So if I could be outdoors as much as possible, I could. I mean, I think we have it backwards. I think, no, I really do. I think we don't work on spiritual aspects of ourselves, and we worry about everything else that's materialistic, your car, your house, and you can have those things. But I think we have it upside down, which is focus on what's really important, and everything else will work its way. Get outdoors, from time to time. Understand what your meaning is, what's your purpose, what's your drive, who are your mentors? Who do you want to mentor? Who do you want to influence? How about your brotherhood? Do you have a tribe? Do you have guys who regularly check up on you? Do you check up on other people? And then everything else, whether you want to go out and go to dinner or a movie, that's fine. But really work on the things that are most important, which is what you're doing, right? You're looking at emerging technologies like drones. You're doing a lot of brainstorming. You're working with people with wind tunnels. You're working with doers, producers, not consumers. And so to answer your question, I think that's really important, is that we have really, if I could say, we bifurcate it. We have those who do and those who don't. You guys are those who do. And it's not that black and white. There are a lot of people who, have a good life and enjoy it. And it's not to say that they don't help others, but yours seems to be that you guys are really out there seeking ways to have these significant milestones. How do I impact the world? How do I impact families and children? And how do I leave these leaders that are going to grow up like you, a young boy at 4, my grandson at 6. I mean, he's a baby. He knows nothing of the world.
Right.
But yet you take these kids and you impact their lives in such a way that they can probably have an easier time pondering life and saying, well, what's next? I mean, because they're around other people who care. And that's it. I mean, how about a child that didn't care? And it could have gone very differently for you. You could have had a mom that didn't care, a stepfather that didn't care, a group that didn't care, but yet you took it. And so that to me is a very interesting story. And if anyone goes to the Children of Fallen Heroes and looks at the impacts, it's incredible. If you go and look at their page and look at everything they've done, they work with the fire department. They're working with the engineers of tomorrow. They are out there healing and strengthening people. Incredible.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is that we're not just, yes, it's Children of Fallen Heroes, but we're really about creating a movement.
Mm-hmm.
It's about time. Just like you hit the word so perfect. The tribe, the community is a tribe. We have a responsibility as a community. And I think that we have gotten into, just like you said, a materialistic type of world where we have forgotten some of the basics in life. Back in the farm days when somebody wanted to build a farm, we all went to help build the farm. We built that barn together as a community. And I'm hoping to bring that back. Technology has its pros and its cons, as we know. So I'd like to say that, yes, we're going to create that movement. I'm hoping that when we do the property and so forth, that it will be no cell phones. I really do. I want them to engage.
Yeah.
And I've watched it firsthand on how amazing that can be. I'll give you an example. I take 100 kids into a wind tunnel. We've got robotics going on. We got that going on. And what's so interesting is actually the young teenage girls. When they first get there, they have their phones. They're not really socializing a whole lot and everything. And I am telling you, within 15 minutes, they literally do not have their phones out anymore. And they're engaging and they're mentoring the other younger kids. And then they come up, they're all panicked toward the end. They're like, oh my God, I didn't take any pictures. And you're like, I got you. We took all the pictures. We've got all the videos. So for them to be able to step away from technology and actually fully immerse themselves into this program is just an absolute blessing to watch. It is just, the transformations are unbelievable.
Totally believe that. I mean, it's funny because people do use that technology and they feel that they're missing out on something. So they've got to go online. They've got to be on Instagram or TikTok or the news. And that's great because I do the same. But I'm mature. I'm an older person. I can regulate my thoughts and my emotions. And I can say, okay, here's a timeout for me. Fred, I know, can do the same. I can say, okay, yeah, I'm on the phone, but I know when I'm out gardening or something, I don't care. I don't even need to listen to music. I'll just do my thing. So if we can get those kids and capture their minds for a moment and say, look, you're missing out on some things. It's right here. This is what's important. It's when you have those deep conversations. And if it's not even a deep conversation, but that you're just connecting with people at a level that we used to experience probably 25, 30 years ago before we had these big block cell phones, where you're really connecting with people, that lost art 40, 50, 60 years ago, and then before, because the Industrial Revolution of the 1860s and 70s in England is what made it all like this. You had villagers that worked together, like you said, building barns. I mean, Vikings, okay, cool. But you know what? Vikings weren't always going out there slaying and killing people. They had to, collect the goats and the cows and build the fences and get the longhouses up together. And so it was communal, and you're doing that. But you're also telling stories, which is fantastic as well. You're capturing those moments. You've got a very busy page. When you look at Children Fallen Heroes, there's so much there. It's very immersive, and there's a lot to read. So people should definitely check that out. So a lot of value there. When I look at that page, when I look at your website, I say there's a lot of value. There's a lot accomplished, and there are people who are driven. So I would presume that you have a really good team that are brainstorming what's next. How do we do the next cool thing? I mean, must be a great team of people because you've got so many things going on there. And I don't think that's just you doing it. You must have a great team. So my question to you is, what kind of leader are you? Are you a person who steps aside and trusts people? Are you a micromanager? I mean, what kind of leader are you, and what kind of leader do you think people should be like following?
That's a great question,
Hmm.
and I think that that's also an ebb and flow of leadership as you learn, as you grow and mature in age. Uh, so the type of person that I was to the type of person that I am today, I am more of a person that listens, and I inspire and encourage advancement and changes and innovation. I
Hmm.
think innovation is the biggest key for us moving forward, and surrounding myself by the right people. I've got the Beckmans, Paul, who's just been absolutely amazing with the drone, Rick, who's just been a cog out there in the world, connecting us, um, Jane, who has been our financial advisor. We have other members on the team that have come up with concepts and come up with ideas. Like even Fred and I, when we are out in the woods, we sit there and we brainstorm and kind of chat, and talk about things that we want to do. So I think as far as a leader goes, I am task oriented. You have to be. You wouldn't be in this position if we weren't task oriented. Um, but I am to the point now where I am trying to build the right team and hire the right tribe, um, because you have to fit in. This is a place that we are not going to accept anybody that is cancerous. And what I mean by cancerous is if they have any type of negativity or something. Not saying that we don't have those days, but you can definitely tell there's certain people that have that horse trait that is just not going to change. Um, so I want to make sure that I'm open to that,
Hmm.
and understand that sometimes people are going through things in their lives, but um, to be a compassionate leader is my number one thing that I believe is the core of who I am.
I think it's very telling, and I think without that, you would have been able to accomplish what you've accomplished. You hear about Icarus, right? I want to know what your thoughts on that with Icarus going up to the sun, and his dad tells him no. And I would relate that to yourself and your father. This idea that your own dad had to push it. He wouldn't have been the man he was if he hadn't gone out there and tried to test his mettle to see if he was capable of jumping the way he did and pushing himself. Um, that's a powerful story right there. And then, you look at the story in myth about boys and that wound, and that's where the treasure is. But a lot of people don't want to go into that wound and look into that wound and say, what's hurting me? And if they don't, they can never take that tragedy and turn it to something powerful like you've done. They will let it fester, become toxic, and they grow up into the be some of these guys that you're talking about that we've all met that just crush everything. They ruin everything. They make something good into junk. Yet you've been able to harness that energy, that wound, that treasure, whatever you looked at inside of you, and say, I'm going to do something good. So, you know, um, you're looking at 50 years. What's your thought now? Where you're at in your life right now as a mature man, as much as you've accomplished 5 decades later, how do you see life compared to when you
Um,
saw it as a 4 year old? And is it great? Is there more to do? And what does that look like?
wow, that's a deep question.
Yeah.
You go through life thinking that you have a certain purpose. Um, and that to me was the day that I held Dylan. That I've never had children of my own.
Hmm.
Um, the day that I held Dylan was the day that I absolutely felt like what unconditional love was like. I never felt anything like it, and that became my purpose. Everything that I've ever done was like, hey, I got to do something better, leave something better for him. That was always something that was a part of me. Going through all the tragedies and stuff in life, um, the peaks and the valleys and so forth. I think the biggest thing is that we have what's called generational PTSD,
Hmm.
and some of it is carried on from fathers from Vietnam. Some of the racism and stuff was carried on generational and so forth. But luckily for me, like I said, I had some great parents, that kept me in a straight line. And when I say that with I didn't get caught as a younger teenager, and some of the, look, I was not perfect. I
Yeah.
did some dumb things, you know what I mean, and made some bad decisions, whether it be alcohol, drugs, and so forth. I was your typical person that went through life struggling through those types of things.
Hmm.
But as I started maturing, I kept looking back and going, am I better today than I was yesterday? You know, and am I being humble? Am I, am I making the right decisions in life? So when I look back things on a whole right now, if you were to ask me this like last year, I would have told you that I am flying on autopilot.
Hmm.
And that's because the loss of Dylan was so strong, because you had to go through 2 years of court. You weren't out allowed to have a death and try to heal. You got dragged through it for 2 years. So I kind of just put myself on autopilot mode, and the Children of Fallen Heroes became a distraction, and in a distraction in a good way. You know what I mean? That I'm sitting there, I'm doing something, and I'm doing something that is positive and trying to re-gear my brain, because grief will send you down a rabbit hole
Hmm.
of a spiral that is just, like I said, a gut punch. Um, but with that being said, looking back on everything on the 50 years to be where I was today, where I am today, I would have told you no. I didn't realize that I would be here and doing what I'm doing. Um, do I think that my dad and Dylan helped guided me? Absolutely, without a doubt. My sister helped guided me, just as well. So
Yeah.
uh, having that tight knit tribe, um, has made me who I am today. You know, um, I believe that there is what I call a generational legacy to be left, and I'm excited to leave that for the community.
It's wonderful. Yeah, you can have that where you have weak fathers and weak mothers that crush boys and girls and just infuse them with their own bleak view of the world. And they become broken parents who break other children who become broken parents. But you counteracted this with your leadership. Instead of being an insecure and incapable and confused young man, you became, someone who has done so much good for the community. It is a wonderful, wonderful story. I definitely am going to say again and promote it. Children Fallen Heroes. People need to check that out. Fred, do you have any questions or thoughts, man?
Um, yeah, I mean, I've been writing stuff down, and as you guys talk, I know there's some technical issues on my end. Some stuff came up, but I like the emphasis on community, on mentorship, on leadership, because Mike and I are always talking about those. So you bring that stuff here full circle, which is kind of makes what we talk about relevant or valid, I guess. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for not being a victim.
Yeah.
Like we talked about mindset, where people are have that kind of victim mentality or victim mindset, and the circumstances you had in life, some of the stuff that was dealt to you, you could absolutely have done that, right? And you didn't. You charged forward, and you made stuff happen, and with very positive results. So I want to thank you for that, because we need more people like that in this world for sure.
Hmm.
Excuse me.
Well, thank
We
you.
talked.
I think the thing is that you know we need more people like you two, that are out there spreading the word, and like you said, community is about creating opportunities for other veterans, not just military, but first responders and the community alone, uh, to not be a victim, like you said, and to get out and to participate, and and to make a positive difference. And I want to kind of go over something real quickly with that, with what you had said, and that was, is this one of the key things about Children of Fallen Heroes is that, remember, there's a parent and a child, a guardian and a child, right? You can't work with just the child and spend all this quality time with them to send them back home to a broken foundation.
Yep.
That is not going to work. That's why this camp is so important, because we're going to take that foundation and work with them, separate the two, and then bring them back together so that we can make a positive difference. And hopefully we can break these chains of the victim mentality thing. And because I'll never forget that day. I think I was probably in my 30s, and I'll never forget a kid named Andrew just sat there and he goes, "Stop being a victim. Stop being a victim. Stop playing a victim to yourself." And I'll never forget that day. That was so eye-awakening to me that I was just like, got slapped. And I was like, wow. I go, "You're right. I'm not a victim no more. Let's stop this noise. This has got to stop." So thanks to people like you, mentors and so forth. Those are the type of encouragements and things that we need, and just to really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we do need a good, like a buddy check, we call it, right? A good kick in the ass, like, hey, pull your head out of your ass. Like sometimes we need that.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
What, so for Children of Fallen Heroes, I imagine you have some staff. Do you have volunteers? Like, do you look for volunteers? Like, how do people find you if they want to get involved?
Yeah. So through the website, yeah, we are definitely looking for volunteers. Like I said, this is our 10th year, and we've got some major events coming up. We got our big gala that's coming up this year. So we're definitely in need of volunteers. We have volunteers across the United States. We do provide in all 50 states our services.
Okay.
But yes, we are always, we got to grow. So we need people. We need bodies. There is so many children, especially over here at Fort Bragg. I'll give you an example. MWR, they've got 4 ladies over there that are running that over there, and they got 1,000 families each. I don't know how they do it. That is crazy, and they are the most amazing people, so we try to extend out our hand to help them out in any way that we can too, just as well. But like I said, it takes a community.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about, because I haven't seen one, and you better let me know when you're going to do one of these drone air light shows. Like, I know you showed me videos and pictures, and it looked pretty awesome. Like, tell me about that, and how does that work?
Well, you can see it on the website now. We did make it public. So this is one of the coolest programs that we have kind of going on. So our drone program that we have, we're actually going to be building a drone hub on our runway at our facility. And one of the things that we're doing is the drone and light show. What's so cool about the drone and light show is that we're going to actually have the children of fallen heroes actually make the drones. We have a bunch of DoD drone teachers, and they're actually going to make the drones.
Wow.
They're going to help them do the software, build it out. We're going to make displays and different things. So, but one of the big things is we're going for a Guinness Book of World Records. We're going to create the world's tallest Statue of Liberty, and with the drones. And then as well as we're going to, of course, incorporate pyro with skydiving that's going to go by. And then as well as that, we also have fixed wing drones now that we're actually in the process of making right now. These things have a wingspan about 6 to 8 feet. And what's going to be so awesome is they're going to fly just like the Blue Angels or the Thunderbirds. They're going to come through, and they're going to be so quiet. We'll be able to go over golf courses, and then we'll actually be able to land them onto a pad, like on a pond or something. So it'll have vertical takeoff too, just as well. So we're excited. This is going to be a big year for us. Yeah.
Those fixed wing drones, you call them, those are like scaled down Predator, right? I think you showed me pictures of those. Yeah, those are very cool. I can't wait to see that. So you gotta let me know, man. I want to come check out that show.
Oh yeah,
sure.
You'll be out there. Don't worry.
So one of the things I was going to ask you, Ken, is how does someone get involved that needs help? What do they do? You work with organizations, groups that facilitate help for a child, or how does that work? They sign up, somewhere on your
Yeah,
website, or
they can
how
go.
does that work?
They can go on. They can sign up.
Mhm.
We're at so many events. We're definitely approachable. Um, some of the ways that they can contact us too is even through some of the local police departments and fire departments. We have great relationships. Uh, Matter of fact, we've got like Brunswick County Sheriff's Department. We do a literacy storytime outreach where we donate cases of books, of STEM books to the libraries, but the police officers and first responders go there and they read from kindergarten, fourth grade to Title I schools.
Mhm.
So getting involved with something like that, we're definitely looking for people to help extend that outreach. Um, they're inspiring books. They're really kind of cool books. None of that woke stuff, just all good survival like kind of classes,
Yeah.
STEM like things, little sticker classes, paper airplanes, all kind of geared around engineering and so forth. So just inspiring the next generation. But we are definitely in need to find people. And then if they would like to be in the program, they can easily contact us through any of our social media platforms or our website at Children of Fallen Heroes.
Cool. So my last question to you is, if you were to impart your knowledge to someone, if you were to give your wisdom to someone, what would that be? Whether it was a child or an adult, what's your main message? Some people say, don't be weak. That's their message. But I mean, what is your main message? That thing that you would impart to someone? And you can be as complex and as detailed as you want.
I think that what we're missing in today is compassion, humility, and humbleness. I think that those are the big things that we're missing. I don't think that we need to get out there and be this big boisterous voice that needs to be out there. I don't think that you need to have to prove anything to anybody in this world except to yourself. I think that you have to concentrate on what's right in your heart. I think that is the biggest message that I can portray to people. You are not a victim.
Mhm.
Okay. You have the ability to dig yourself out of any hole that there is. And I say that with reverence a little bit because there are some things that, medically we can't at some things, but we do try to take it at a level. But your body is your temple, and what you feed it is what you output. You feed it crap, you're going to get crap. You feed it with knowledge, you feed it with good nutrition, you do those things, you are going to see your life improve massively. And that is my message to people. Take care of yourself. You can't take care of other people if you can't take care of yourself first. So that's my message, to everybody.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for answering all my questions. Fred, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Ken. Appreciate it, man. You've been an awesome person to talk to and a fountain of information. Look forward to doing more stuff with you guys. And for the listeners, if you're not already aware, make sure, Mike, you're going to include his contact links, website, social media links, all that. So make sure you guys go and check out Children of Fallen Heroes. And if you're interested in volunteering, definitely hit those folks up, man. They're doing really great things for the community and for literally the children of fallen heroes and first responders. But I don't really have any other questions. And if I did, my Wi-Fi probably wouldn't allow me to speak clearly. But I just want to thank you, Ken. You're a great man, a great mentor, and a great friend. Thanks for coming on. Oh, one more question real quick. Do you drink coffee?
I only drink Silencia.
All right. All right. We'll make sure we get you some more.
Wait. Right here.
Yes. All right. Yeah, that's all I got,
Well, I
Mike.
appreciate you.
Thank you.
And like I said, I look forward to it, and we look forward to sharing your brand with our community because you are a light of hope. I love this coffee talk. I want it to get popular and get out there. I'm going to share it with all my friends and with our community. We need y'all's voices. This is what we need in our community. So appreciate what you both are doing. It is awesome.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
All right, Fred. We will chat offline. So, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Please check out Silencio Coffee. Check out Coffee Talk, and it's a lot more to come. And God bless you all.